Good morning, Senior Pride here. Today I'm going to talk about feminism. Now, it should be noted that feminism in some form or other has been going on for millennia, probably longer than we even have a recorded history of. But feminism, the term, was first derived in the 19th century. And I'm going to focus on the 20th and 21st centuries because basically we all were born in the 20th and 21st centuries, and they are very key, especially the 20th century, to changes in legislation, equality, etc. for females. And this is true in most places in the world, not all, but things are changing. It's important to recognize that what feminism means is equality between the genders in political, social, and economic terms. Over the course of the 20th and 21st century, feminism has undergone significant transformations in all of these realms. And this is because it's adapted to cultural, political, and technological changes. So, we look at the early 20th century, starting with the fight for the right for females to vote, and it's moved far beyond that. So let's look at that. The first wave feminism, early 20th century, which was kind of like the 1920s, the whole struggle, the whole meaning of feminism was rooted in that struggle for suffrage. It was characterized by a fight for women's legal and political rights. So in countries like the United States, the United Kingdom, and New Zealand, women organized campaigns for the right to vote and to participate in public life. For the world, one of the most significant changes and victories was the 19th Amendment in the United States in 1920, which gave women the right to vote, and that kind of expanded outward worldwide. So women in the UK achieved partial suffrage in 1918 and full suffrage in 1928. And these victories were the result of relentless activism by suffragettes like Emmeline Pankhurst, who led the Women's Social and Political Union in Britain. And these women really started the evolution of feminism. The other things that these first wave feminists fought for were the opportunity for women to go to attend educational institutions, to have employment, and to own property. Now, it's important to note that a lot of this achievement was really focused on white middle-income women. So issues faced by working class women, issues faced by women of color, issues faced by women with disabilities, these were not part of that realm. And over time, that would change. It would call for changes. Then there was second wave feminism, which many of us on this site will remember well. And this occurred from the 1960s to the 1980s. And it looked at addressing issues that were social and cultural in nature. And this was things such as workplace discrimination, reproductive rights, and domestic violence. Now, Betty Friedan's book, The Feminine Mystique, in 1963, is kind of credited with igniting this second wave. She exposed the dissatisfaction of suburban housewives who felt confined to domestic roles. And this started widespread conversations about gender roles. There were also the rise of influential organizations at this time, like for instance in the United States now, or the National Organization for Women. They advocated strongly for the ERA, or the Equal Rights Amendment, which promoted with policies that they wanted to promote gender equality. Now, Simone de Beauvoir's The Second Sex in 1949, this was a book that provided a philosophical foundation for this movement, and it challenged traditional roles of femininity and advocated for women's liberation. So during this period, intersectionality began to be derived or emerge as a critical concept, but it remained underdeveloped. So, for example, Black feminists like Audre Lorde and Bell Hooks criticized the second wave for, again, its focus on the experiences of white middle-class women, and they called for a more inclusive approach that addressed race, class, and sexual orientation. So, for the second wave of feminism, the exclusion of minority voices and the failure of the ability to address intersectionality left radical and liberal feminists clashing with each other. And this was over like strategies, priorities. Some were advocating for a systemic change, others focusing on legal and policy reforms. So these tensions highlighted the need for a more nuanced understanding of oppression, and it set the stage for the next waves of feminism. And that's where we get to the 21st century. So the third wave was kind of the 1990s to 2010s. So just before the beginning of the 21st century to just after. And this wave sought to address the limitations of previous waves by emphasizing individuality, diversity, and intersectionality. It challenged the idea of a universal female experience and recognized that women's identities are shaped by multiple factors, including race, ethnicity, class, and sexual orientation, as well as what would come in the fourth wave, disability and other experiences. These third wave feminists embraced cultural and sexual liberation. They advocated for LGBTQ plus rights, body positivity, and the deconstruction of traditional gender roles. There were figures like Rebecca Walker, who famously declared the start of the third wave in her 1992 essay, emphasizing the importance of reclaiming feminism for younger generations. Riot Girl was a feminist punk movement, and it used music and art to challenge patriarchy and empower women. It also saw an increased attention to global feminism, and there were activists addressing issues such as female genital mutilation, child marriage, and access to education for girls in the global South. However, there sometimes was a lack of a clear focus, which kind of diluted the impact. And that leads us to the fourth wave of feminism, which was kind of the 2010s, to the present. And one of the things that defines this fourth wave is its use of digital technology and social media to advance feminism. So hashtags like Me Too, Time's Up, Yes All Women, 4B movement have mobilized millions of women worldwide, creating spaces for survivors of sexual harassment and assault to share their stories and demand accountability. It's also emphasized by its focus on intersectionality, recognizing that gender inequality intersects with other forms of oppression, such as racism, ableism, and homophobia. Activists have focused on issues such as workplace harassment, gender diversity, and systemic oppression. This extreme rise of global feminism has also been a hallmark of this fourth wave. So movements in India like the hashtag Stop Acid Attacks and Nigeria's Bring Back Our Girls, these highlight the interconnectedness of feminist struggles across the globe. Now, the fourth wave also faces significant challenges, including online harassment and backlash from anti-feminist groups and blatant hatred of women. There are some key achievements of these eras of feminism, the 20th and 21st century, and these include significant milestones in legal, social, and cultural realms. So reproductive rights, including access to contraception and abortion, have been expanded in some countries, although they remain contested in others. And I think a really obvious example of that is what's happening in the United States with things going backward. Workplace policies such as parental leave and anti-discrimination laws have improved conditions for some women, while cultural shifts have normalized diverse gender roles and identities. Interestingly, feminism has also transformed media representation with more women in leadership roles and greater diversity in storytelling. Campaigns for equal pay and gender parity in politics continue to make progress, but note that this is slow progress. So what are some of the ongoing challenges that we as feminists face? First of all, the gender pay gap still persists, with women consistently earning less than men for the same work in many, many fields. That glass ceiling effect remains a barrier to women's advancement in leadership roles, and this is particularly true in areas like politics and business. There's intersectional challenges that are particularly pressing, such as issues for women of color, the LGBTQ plus community, and women with disabilities, and we continue to face excessive discrimination. There's also a backlash against feminist movements, which is often fueled by misinformation and conservatism, and it poses obstacles to continued progress. Access to education, healthcare, and economic opportunities remain unequal for women in different parts of the world. So in order to address these disparities, we need to maintain activism and we need to maintain that global solidarity. Feminism, the future of feminism lies in its ability to adapt to emerging challenges, such as the impact of technology on gender dynamics, the climate crisis, and the rise of these authoritarian regimes that are threatening women's rights, that are taking us backwards. And again, we can kind of look to the United States to see that there seems to be, they moved so far forward and now they're kind of stripping backwards with these, with an authoritarian regime coming in. And it is an authoritarian regime. I know I'm going to get flack for saying this, but Donald Trump does not like women. We also see that in Canada. We are looking at very shortly an election being called, a very extreme right-wing party being placed in position of power where they can do a lot of damage to women's rights. Now, that being said, if we maintain continued advocacy, if we keep speaking out, if we keep fighting for our rights, we can maintain what we've got and move forward. And with that, I say, if you enjoyed this uh, this video, please hit subscribe and like. Please share. Please comment. Keep those comments respectful. Male hate comments, which I have been receiving, usually from the same guy, not acceptable. I don't put up with that BS. I'm not some little bimbo who gives in. Fact is, I fight back, and I usually fight back by simply reporting you. So if you make obscene comments, if you make comments that refer to my gender as less than, I will report you. I'm sorry that it has to be said, but at this point, due to that specifically one person, it needs to be said. With that, I say, remember, to be senior is to be proud. Hugs.